So I was listening early this morning. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the gentleman by the name of David Goggins. So he is more of an inspirational speaker, so to speak, former Navy SEAL, self-made. This individual has a lot of passion, and the way that his mind is framed is beyond amazing. And as I mentioned, he speaks his truth and he gives his motivation in the most authentic way possible. But I will say, his motivation is not for everybody. Like, if you are an individual who's too sensitive, then you're not going to want to hear what he has to say, because he's straight, hard, and direct. If you're not ready to know your truth, he's the person you don't want to listen to, because he will put you on blast and make you feel, if you're not ready to hear your truth, either you're going to run from what he has to say, or you're going to sit there and attempt to face your truth and listen to what he has to say. And that's what I love about this guy. But he did a live chat last night, and I happened to listen to it this morning, about holding yourself accountable. And he talked about, I'm going to just give a brief story. He talked a little bit about how he is being sued by a driver who hit someone else. So his point was, the driver is not taking accountability or responsibility for his actions. So instead of doing that, he's putting the blame on David. And I'm assuming it was a David sponsored event or what have you. I'm not 100% sure, but he's putting the onus on him, saying that it is his fault that he hit the individual. You know, so I found that pretty interesting. I kind of listened to the rest of the dialogue. And if you don't know who he is, I highly recommend that you look him up, because again, the way that his mind thinks is amazing. And this is how a lot of people should think, because the mind is more powerful than you think. And I think I mentioned that the other day. Whose fault is it when you don't believe in yourself? It's your fault. It's nobody else's fault. You can have a ton of people saying, no, you're not going to do this, you're not going to be able to do that, or you're too weak, or your mind is not strong enough, or I don't believe you can take it. That may be a lot on some people, and I get that. However, at the end of the day, it is your fault that you choose not to believe in yourself. It is your fault that you're not going to take the chance because of what somebody else said to you that may have hurt your feelings, or maybe compromise what you want to believe. That is your fault. Whose fault is it when you have self-doubt? When you doubt yourself, whose fault is that? It's nobody else's fault. Again, if I tell you that, no, I don't believe in you, it shouldn't matter if I believe in you or not. Do you believe in yourself? That's what's most important. Do you believe in yourself? Do you have enough or the strong mental mind and mental state to say, you know what, I can do this? Because no matter what path you go on, there are going to be some challenges. But what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with those obstacles that come in front of you? That is something that you can help facilitate. So how does that work? It is all in your mind. The things you believe that you can't do, it's in your mind. 9.9 out of 10, it is in your mind. You can do these things if you really want to, but a lot of times we find ourselves making excuses to why we can't do something. Oh, this is not the right time. Well, ask any woman who had an unplanned baby or unplanned pregnancy, that did she say it wasn't the right time? I bet when she gave birth, everything worked out just fine. She made it work. That family made it work. Regardless if it was the right time in their life, they made it work. They didn't make excuses. They made it work. So as you mentioned, mind over matter. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to change that narrative? That is up to you. How are you going to change that narrative? When something doesn't go your way, or you're negative about something, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to have the strength, the mental strength and the mental toughness to push through it and believe in yourself and to think you can? I would tell you, I've had a lot of challenges in life. And when it came time to write my dissertation, I'm not going to even lie to you. That thing kicked my butt. It literally kicked my butt. But at the same time, even though I was getting hit left and right, and my chair who was, going through my dissertation telling me, nope, you need to redo this, you need to redo that, you need to fix all this. It gets discouraging. But at the end of the day, I knew no matter what, I was going to do what I needed to do to get it done. And if it wasn't for me, it was for my children. It was for a bigger purpose. I could not let myself down. I could not let them down. So I knew no matter what, how hard it was or how long it was going to take, I was going to get it done. no matter how defeated I felt, I controlled my own thoughts. I could have said, you know what? This is not going to happen. There's many people who go on that journey that never finish. And it's all about mind over matter. And again, I understand life obstacles happen too, but how are you going to get around those obstacles? Again, that was my choice to make. And no, I saw all the way through. So you can control many things that happen to you. Well, you may not control everything, but sometimes you can control the outcome. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We are our own worst enemy, and we put ourselves in this little box to believe that, oh, it's society's fault. It's this person's fault why I can't do this. It's that person's fault. Or I'm blaming everybody but myself. The problem is we fail to look in the mirror and look at our shortcomings and see where we need to improve. But it's mentally easier to say, you know what? It's not my fault, not my responsibility. It's his or her fault. Or it's that company's fault. Or whose ever fault it is. And if you're familiar with David Goggins, you understand he was big at one point, and he worked his way to great fitness at a great fitness level and things of that nature. And so when everybody's suing everybody, and he alluded to McDonald's or these fast food restaurants, whose fault is it that you're out of shape and big? It's not McDonald's fault. It's your fault. You the one choose to go eat these hamburgers and French fries and whatever the case. And I'm not saying don't enjoy your meals, but the problem is in today's society, we blaming everybody. And that goes to, and I hate to say this, but it's parenting too. Parents giving excuses to their kids of why something is wrong instead of saying, you know what, make their kids be responsible for their actions. They're not wanting to do that. Instead, they'll blame somebody else and try to butter them up and make it feel like, oh, it's a happy-go world. You can blame everybody but yourself because it is not your fault that things are messed up. Oh, yes, it is. So stop coddling these kids and stop coddling yourself. Own your mistakes. Own your truth. Own your responsibility. If you make a mistake, great. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone at every level, no matter how high you're on the food chain or how low you're on the food chain, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. What are you going to learn from those mistakes? Again, own it. Don't point it on somebody else and blame somebody else for something that did not happen in your life. Why are you blaming other people for something that in many cases you can control? If you can control it, control it. Don't look for the way out. Sometimes it is a tough road. Without that tough road, you're not going to grow. But sometimes when things get tough, we tend to back up and be like, you know what? I don't want to do that. That road's too tough. Well, let me tell you this. You think it's going to get any easier? No, it's not going to get any easier. In fact, it will probably get tougher because for one, you're already mentally defeated and chose not to go that route because you ran away from it. So what are the odds of you going back down that road and face those tough challenges? That is something that you can decide. That is something you have to decide and say, you know what? I can do this. And again, you may have people in your ear telling you otherwise. No, you can't do this. I don't believe in you. I don't have faith in you. It doesn't matter what they say. Do you believe and have faith in yourself? That's what you need to determine. So how are you going to change your narrative? Well, fix it. Find a way to change your narrative for it to work in your favor. Because a lot of things is built around how we think about things. You can be a pessimist or an optimist. Me, I'm an optimist. I find silver lining in everything, no matter how bad it may appear on the outside. And I always say, just because something may be bad happening in your life doesn't mean it's not happening for a good reason. What are you going to do with it? What is your takeaway from that happened? What do you get out of it? And what you got out of it, how are you going to take that and use that to your advantage? That is something you have to decide. The problem is we too blind and willing to blame everybody else and not seeing the truth of what it is. And we fail to see the silver lining in something because we too focused on the negative. Take a moment, decompress, have your pity party, and look for the positive that's in that story because the positive does exist. Once you realize what that positive or those positives are, use them to your advantage. Use them to get to where you need to be. Create your own stepping stone. And same thing with the working environment. We say, oh, well, my leaders are horrible. And I get it. Sometimes there are horrible leaders. They're not allowing me to do X, Y, and Z. They're not allowing me to grow. Okay. I can admit some situations where it is the organizations, the leaders, part of their responsibility to help you grow and set you up for success. But who's ultimately responsible? You are. If I am weak at something in my workplace, not mine supervisor, not my organization, I will find a way to fix it. I am in charge of my destiny. I am in charge of my growth. I am not going to put my growth in somebody else's hands. Can I use them as a tool? Absolutely. If they give me the resources, great. I will use them and follow the path that I need to follow to get there. But if they don't, I'm still going to follow the path that I need to get there. I am not going to blame my organization or my leaders for me not accomplishing something that I want to accomplish. It is not their fault. They may have something from the leadership standpoint that it may be their fault, or organizational. I get that part of it. But at the end of the day, you control your own destiny. You do this. So we don't live in this happy world where everybody want to blame everybody. But again, that's where we are right now in society. We're blaming everybody for what goes wrong in our life. I lost my job. Oh, it's this person's fault. Or they were just laying off. Well, was it your work ethic? Was it your performance? And they just didn't want to tell you how bad you were? It's a possibility. And if that's the case, own it. Say, you know what? I didn't perform like I should have. I probably should have got laid off. That's a nice way of saying they fired me. It is what it is. Own it. Now, I understand there's some things that you may not be able to control. However, once that happens, when you go down that new path, what are you going to do with it from that point on? What are you going to do with it? That is your choice. That is your destiny. And believe me, you can do pretty much anything you want to do, but you have to get out of that negative circle and blaming everybody else for your mistakes or your shortcomings or why something happened. And I have, someone that I know who blames his whole life on everybody else. Anything that goes wrong in his life, it's everybody else's fault. He is not taking ownership of his life. He is not taking ownership of his responsibility. And I can even admit, he got a DUI. Do you think he blamed himself? No, he blamed the cops. That's what I'm talking about. It's not the cops' fault you got a DUI. The cops didn't make you get behind the wheel. You did that. You made that choice. You made that decision. You chose to be irresponsible. That is your choice. Own your choice. And then we go find these little high-priced lawyers who try to make you believe a false narrative and you buy into it. No, own it. Be a person of ethics and values and morals. Own that. Own that for what it is. Stop blaming people for things that go wrong. Or when you do something wrong, stop blaming people. It's not always their fault. And there are some people, yes, I know, who try to sabotage you and things of that nature. That's fine. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to rise above it? How are you going to keep moving forward? These are things that you have to determine. So the choice is yours. But again, it was sitting on my mind, and I listened to what he had to say this morning, and he was spot on. And I'm like, you know what? That part that sparked something in my head. And I'm like, you know what? I have to say something, and I have to get it off my chest, because life is challenging enough as it is, right? It's too challenging in some instances, but we make it more challenging for us than it should be. Oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes. We create these obstacles for ourselves that we should not even create. We do that. A lot of people do that for themselves. Stop it. Stop doing it. Because sometime when you get it, people say that, these are the cards that I was dealt. Okay. So now, if these are the cards that you're dealt, how are you going to change the way you play that particular hand? That is your choice. If you got all bad cards, that does not mean it needs to be all bad. How are you going to rearrange those cards or prioritize those cards to play those cards differently so you can have a different outcome? I just wanted to throw that out there. But that's all I wanted to say and get off my chest today. I hope you all got some out of it. I see a lot of people say that you needed to hear that. Well, it's the truth. We all need to hear that sometime. Every last one of us, to include myself. We all need to hear that and own our life, own our responsibility, own our mistakes, because no one else is going to own it. And you're going to go through life blaming everybody else. And then in turn, your kids are going to go through life blaming everybody else. The cycle has to stop somewhere. So let's make it stop. But thank you all for your time. I know this was kind of different than my normal chat live session that I had with you all. But again, a little frustrated and just thinking of our current reality. Let's fix it. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day. You all have a wonderful day.